Awesome. So let me know if ever you can't see my screen anymore. Don't hesitate to interrupt me if you can't hear me anymore either. So as Gemma said, my name is Andrea Zoellner. I'm the VP of Marketing at Kinsta, which is a premium web hosting company. And we have people all around the world. So we're a distributed company, but I live in Montreal. And in fact, I attended my first Women Tech Makers Montreal conference in the spring of 2016 when it was hosted at l'École de Technologie Supérieure. So I am so thankful to be here today and to be able to present. I have such fond memories of when I attended the conference and all the inspiring leaders. And I definitely am going to be attending the next couple of lunch and learns because that looks like such a great lineup of speakers and topics. So thinking about 2016, I want to rewind a little bit to that time because that was about a year into my first job in tech marketing. I had had contracts and freelanced for startups and clients before, but I was still relatively new to the tech industry after a career pivot that I had done from journalism and corporate communications into tech. So as with all presentations, this is the part where the speaker kind of shares what makes them qualified to give this talk. So here's a quick timeline of my career jumps and growth and exactly how I got to my current job of VP of Marketing. And so right now I sit on the executive team at Kinsta. I oversee work of about 20 individual contributors on 3 different teams. And it's a job that I got just shy of my 30th birthday after being at a company for less than 2 years. So I'm sure someone who has been in management for 20 plus years could give a great talk on how to prepare for your first leadership or management role. My angle is that I got promoted fairly quickly, twice in the last 2 years. So I have very fresh memories of what that was like, and I'm going to share my tips and lessons learned with you today. I want to point out that my career in marketing and communications really started in 2010. So I've been in marketing in some shape or form for more than a decade, but it was really only in 2014 that I made the decision to start at the bottom again and quit my job to do an internship so that I could move from the financial industry into tech. I saw that in a couple of weeks, there's a presentation on taking risks for your career growth. And I think this is an example of one for me. And so from there, I moved around a bit, but not without a pretty good idea of where I wanted to go in the short to medium term. And everyone's situation is different, but if you're looking to move up into a leadership role, whether that's leading a project, a product team, or seeking out a people management position, there are really 2 main ways to do that, and both require being proactive and vocal about what you want. Either you seek out opportunities within the organization you currently work with, or you get a new job at a new company that gets you closer to your goal. From my own experience, I can say that both of these strategies have worked for me at different times in my career. Sometimes you have to leave a company to get unstuck, and sometimes the best place to grow is right where you are. Personally, my biggest career wins have been within the organization I work in today. And in this presentation, I want to share my 8 ways that I prepared for that first leap into management, first as head of growth in 2020. And those are the tips that continue to serve me now, 6 months into my role as VP of Marketing. So the first tip is, are you looking to lead for the right reasons? I wrote a whole blog post about this on what is kind of now a neglected blog of mine, but it's called This Millennial Manager. And in that blog post, I outlined what you should be asking yourself as you determine if a leadership role is your next career move, and figuring out if you're doing it for the right reasons. Are you doing this because it feels like the next natural step in your career? Or are you really passionate about making change and you feel like in a leadership position that is the best place for you to enact that change? Are you wanting that promotion because everyone around you is an idiot and if they just listened to you, they would all be so much better off? Or are you looking to be a boss because you want to call the shots? Surprise, middle management often feels like you're navigating a lot of competing priorities. So you may feel like you have even less control than you did as an individual contributor. But essentially, being a manager isn't about control or calling the shots. It's really about service. And so if the people management side of things inspires you, that's great. Because in my experience, being the boss is spending a lot of time putting other people first and making sure your team members are growing and thriving. It also means letting other people get the credit and seeing the collective win as your own win. So this isn't a great role if you're driven by your ego. I want to mention that there are a lot of ways to lead without having a management role. So you can lead projects at your company, you can lead task forces, committees, you can lead kind of nonprofit organizations and meetups just like this one. So there are a lot of management roles that don't actually have people management involved. And these are great ways to dip your toes into management, into leadership, to build up your skill set, whether you're deciding to go into a more formal leadership role or not. So there's lots of ways to kind of taste that little bit of leadership without having a leader or management role in your job title. Number 2 is to get real about your fears. So if you want a leadership role, but you've been hesitant to make the leap in the past, it's time to really think about what is keeping you from doing that. What are your fears? One quote I hear from time to time is that men will apply for jobs they're 60% qualified for, and women will only apply for the jobs they're 90 to 100% qualified for. And so this can also apply to leadership positions, and we'll never really be ready for our first management role. You kind of have to just start somewhere. So the idea of going from managing 0 people to managing a team of 4, 5, or 10 plus individual contributors can be daunting, even for the most confident of us. So if this doesn't resonate with you, great, go for it, go at it, follow your dreams. But if this sounds like you, then my tip is to really think about where that self-doubt is coming from, and so that you can put some words to those feelings of fear. And essentially, if there's anything that's making you nervous about becoming a manager, it's like list them out, look at them, write them down. We don't always have the luxury of being able to dip your toes into managing one person and see how it goes. Most organizations, even when you are promoted to leadership, you can't just stop, go and do management training for 3 weeks and then come back and start your new job. You really do have to do on-the-job training. So the best way to overcome your fears is really just to face them. But if you can put words to those feelings, then you'll be better off. What are you really nervous about in management? Is it having difficult conversations and being in uncomfortable situations? Is it managing the budgets and balancing the spreadsheets? Is it the salary negotiations? Is it being taken seriously by your colleagues who were once, kind of at the same level as you and now they report to you? Is it being responsible for your department's quotas and, end of period results? Take the time to find out, because that will definitely set you up for success. The next one is to ask for an honest evaluation from the people around you. This tip is useful if you got the management job, but also it's useful if you got turned down for that promotion or weren't selected as the candidate for a leadership role. Ask your boss and the managers around you what they think your strengths are and where you may have some blind spots. One book I highly recommend to all new managers is Thanks for the Feedback by Douglas Stone and Sheila Heen. And one of the suggestions in the book is to ask your manager or your mentor or someone that you trust, what's one thing you see me doing that gets in my own way? Because even if you didn't get the job, a good recruiter or hiring manager will tell you how to improve. So if you got turned down, this is your opportunity to adopt a growth mindset and to learn from that. And that's how you can set up sort of your task list for how you're going to progress to the next step. And if you are preparing to move into a leadership role, even if you were the number one choice in that for that position, nobody's perfect. So there are going to be some elements that you're going to have to work extra hard at doing. And if other people around you can help you give an honest portrayal of what those strengths and weaknesses are, then you'll be that much better off. And tied to that is to understand the expectations in this new leadership role or the leadership role that you're looking to apply to. Because if there's one thing that can really set you up for failure, it's a misalignment and a misunderstanding on the expectations of you in this role. This can be expectations from all across the organization. So think about the expectations from your boss, the person you're directly reporting to, other managers at that same level, higher up managers in other departments, and even the people that you will be leading. What do they want to see from you? How can you best support them? So ask for that input from across the organization. It could also be that you're replacing someone or coming into a role that was designed to tackle a specific issue or find solutions to a specific challenge. Make sure that you're aware of those, because not only will that help you kind of prepare yourself for leadership, but it'll also help you set those goals for your team once you are in that position of leadership. And if you haven't quite taken the step to become a leader yet, but you're eyeing a position, or you're trying to sort of scout out what the next couple of years look like for you within an organization, then I would recommend talking to the talent acquisition or talent development teams at your organization and ask them, what does this organization expect from their leaders? What are the job descriptions of a team leader or the next role that you're looking at in a management position? What are some of the values that this company prioritizes, and what do they expect, so that you can align yourself with those expectations and even help yourself present yourself to your bosses, or even as you're preparing to interview at a different company for a leadership role, you can already start implementing those kinds of expectations into your language and the way that you present yourself. Number 5 is to balance your strengths and weaknesses. So by this, I do mean soft skills to some degree. I think self-awareness and ability to receive feedback is perhaps one of the most underrated skills for a manager, because you're not going to be good at everything, especially not at the beginning, and you're going to make some mistakes. So, but I also mean balance your strengths and weaknesses in a very practical, hard skills kind of way. Because one of the biggest shifts for me when I went from being an individual contributor to managing a team is that all of a sudden I was doing a lot less of what I was really good at. Like, my expertise was my full role at that time. And then when I moved into leadership, all of a sudden I was doing a whole lot more of everything else. And so managers, it depends on the industry and the role in the organization and how it's set up. But a lot of the time, managers are not able to be experts and specialists in their field anymore. They have to be managing other experts and specialists. And sometimes it's a team of experts that have very diverse areas of focus and responsibilities. So in my case, I went from being a content creator to managing a team with PPC advertising experts and demand generation specialists, affiliate program managers. These were all areas of marketing that I had experience with and I had worked with in the past, but they hadn't been my areas of expertise. But I knew that if I was going to be managing these people, I had to get extremely familiar with their work, with their challenges, with the realities of their areas of focus, so I could really be a support to them. So that required me to look at my skill sets and look at what I was knowledgeable about, and then balance those and get better at the ones that I didn't have as much experience with, and spend a little bit less time on the ones that came naturally. So I had to balance these. And also, my job was to connect the dots for these people. So if I didn't have a good handle on their jobs, I wasn't going to be a good advocate for them outside of the department and be able to connect them and connect the dots with things that were happening outside of marketing that could have an impact on their jobs. And I would say that even if you're not in a leadership position, that ability to see outside of your own area and look across the organization and to collaborate with other departments will make you a more attractive candidate for leadership as well. So this leads me to my next tip number 6, which is to get to know your organization really well. This tip is definitely for people who are looking to move up within the organization they're already working with or familiar with, or even within the industry that they are currently in. But looking back at my own career journey, as well as my experience promoting people into their first leadership roles, employees who are active, paying attention to the company's operations, and making an effort to stay on top of internal news and interdepartmental initiatives, they stand out as potential candidates for leadership. Because as a manager, your job is to be aware of the company policies, the big picture company values, product roadmaps, where the industry is going, and to bring that information back to your team of experts who are focused on their specific areas of responsibility. So I believe the most effective leaders are the ones who have their finger on the pulse, and they know within an organization where the seats of knowledge are. Where do you go for information within the organization? Who are the decision makers within the organization? How are decisions made? Where are the detractors and where are the advocates? Understanding all of those dynamics within an organization will make you a better leader, and also allow you, if you're seeking leadership positions, to know where the opportunities are and to know how to present yourself in a way that makes you an ideal candidate. Knowing your organization well will also help you identify your support system in your new management position. So one big thing that changes when you move up in an organization is your relationships with your colleagues. I think I have a great working relationship with my team and with my team members, but there was definitely a slight change when I became their boss, and again when I became their boss's boss. So you really can't talk about departmental challenges or air your grievances in the same way anymore, because it can be really unprofessional and create an unhealthy work culture if you're dishing about sensitive topics to team members, and especially if you're disclosing information about a colleague of theirs. I think that, above all, you never want to compromise your team members' trust as their manager. You have to create those boundaries so every team member has that trust in you. But you still need support. As a new manager, you have to identify what your support system is for you, and when you need help, when you need advice, when you simply need to vent. It could be your HR rep, it could be your boss or fellow managers at your level or above, and it could be a mentor that you trust and meet with regularly. You'll also discover new connections and relationships within the strata that you're in your organization. So the biggest shift for me when I joined the executive team at the company I work with is that I started to think about them as my colleagues, and I had to treat them like my peers and my colleagues in the same way I had with my marketing department, for the last couple of years. So that was a shift that I had to make. All of a sudden, I was part of a new team with new people, and they became my resources and my support network. My last tip here is to make a plan for your progress. Whether you're gearing up to apply for your first leadership position or you're currently a boss, you want to make sure that you're always learning. When I was promoted to my first management role, my team, we just didn't stop. The work didn't stop. I didn't get to go to leadership training right away. We didn't backfill my old position. So I could easily have been overwhelmed with all the work that had to happen right here, right now, and never actually take the time to level up my management skills. Luckily, my organization had a lot of resources available to me, so I was quickly able to carve out time to follow the management training and develop my career and my skills in that way. But not everyone has those resources, especially if you're a self-taught, self-employed person who's trying to level up their management skills on their own. I would say look for resources around you and make yourself a learning plan. You can learn from your own mistakes, but it's always better to learn from the mistakes of others who've come before you. So seek out those books, those courses, those podcasts, those blogs, and carve out time every single week to learn about a new topic and to hear from other more experienced leaders. If that means joining a group of new managers and being able to bounce ideas off of each other and share your struggles or share what kind of situations you're experiencing and how you handled them or the mistakes that you made, that is a great way to learn and to just grow in your own confidence and to level up your experience more quickly, because you can benefit from the experience of other people. So keep in mind that you're really never alone, and that the best thing you can do as a manager is to not be prideful and be in your corner and try and solve all of the problems that you encounter on your own, but to figure out who your network of support is and to be in touch with them regularly and to ask for their recommendations for books and courses as well, so you can continually be growing in your own leadership skills. So in summary, I realized that was a lot of rapid fire information. So first, evaluate your motivations, identify your fears, ask for an honest evaluation, understand the expectations for leadership, balance out your strengths and weaknesses, both soft skills and hard skills, get to know your organization inside and out, identify your support system, and make a plan for your progress. And that was it from me. I am happy to take questions. And if you want to find me online, that's my Twitter handle and my DMs are open.
Cool. Thank you so much, Andrea. I think we have a few questions. I'm going to go with the first one. Says, thank you for the great presentation. You mentioned difficult conversations. Could you touch on how to have this difficult conversation as a new manager?
Yeah, that is a great question. And so something that I did with other managers at Kinsta is that we actually had a training session where we got to practice with each other, because difficult conversations require preparation. They require knowing exactly what you're going to say. It doesn't hurt to have a script prepared, even if you only glance at it. But I would say the couple of tips that I always use is to really be prepared, that you know what you're trying to say and that you have taken the time to wordsmith it so that you are saying it in the right way. And you can always ask a more experienced manager to practice with you and to look over what you want to say and what you're trying to convey, so it's coming across the right way. And the second thing I would say is really individualize what you're trying to say in a difficult conversation based on the person that you're speaking with. So if you know that that person, it needs time to think about what you're saying and to process it, don't expect them to have an answer on the call that you're having with them, or if you're having a talk in person. You can say, I know that there's a lot of information, it may be new information. If you need to take some time to think about it, we can schedule a follow-up to this call in the future. So you want to give that flexibility to the person on the other end to absorb the information and to address it in a way that they're comfortable with, because not everyone will have the ability to process and respond right away.
Yeah, yeah, that's great. We have another one that say, do you have some resources or books that you recommend? I think you say
Yeah.
one is like, I didn't private, like, thank you for your feedback.
Yeah, thanks for the feedback. I have a blog post on, I think if I go thismillennialmanager.com, I have a section where I list the books that I'm currently reading. I don't know if anyone can find it and drop it in the chat while I'm speaking, but that has some of the books that I'm currently reading or have read recently. I think Thanks for the Feedback has been a game changer for me. I absolutely adore that book. There's also a book, Having Inclusive Conversations. Again, that will be on thismillennialmanager.com. I believe I have that listed. I want to say it's The Manager's Path. I will tweet out a couple of book recommendations after this talk. So if you follow me on Twitter, you can find them there.
Okay, that's perfect. Thank you. Then someone asked, did you see a change in your work-life balance when moving to management? And if so, how hard was it to adjust?
Yes, definitely. I actually got this same question from someone I was promoting into my old job. When I moved up to VP, I had to backfill my head of growth position, and I got this question from the candidate because that was a concern of hers, and I understand. And it, can you log off at 5 p.m.? And this is a very personal question or decision, because I think everyone knows their workflows the best and what they need to feel fully rested every single day. So I remember listening to a podcast, and I can't remember who the host was or whether it was the guest, but she said, if you are not starting every day well rested, then you are not balancing your work life well. It's not like, I think some people think that the weekend is where you recharge. And if you're burnt out on Friday, but Monday you come recharged and you're doing all right. But this podcaster was really challenging that and saying, no, if every day you feel burnt out and you're just accumulating that, from one day to the next, then something's got to change. So I think that's a question you have to ask yourself. Like, am I starting the workday fully recharged? And if the answer is no, then you kind of have to adjust there. But personally, for me, I think I do have workaholic tendencies. So I had to make that decision of what I was comfortable with. And I work for a remote company. So I have employees that are in Australia and some that, are on the West Coast in the United States. And so my first goal was how can I make sure that I'm balancing my own rest, but also being a resource to those people who are way outside of my time zone. And we found a compromise. So, every other week, I'm the one who takes a late night call. And the other times they, kind of go outside of their own time zone. And so there were some compromises I had to make, but it all came down to balancing the responsibilities with my own answer to that question. Am I starting the day recharged?
Mhm. Oh, thank you. That's very interesting. Another question is when you are asked for a feedback about a person on your team, how can you bring up the negative points without harming him in his career? Or he or she is a member of your team, is a challenging point as a leader of a team.
Yeah, that's another one of those difficult conversations. How do you manage performance issues with an individual contributor? I don't think that there's any silver bullet. There's no easy way to bring negative feedback, but there are some ways that will help preserve the relationship and to be in the best interest of the individual contributor and their team members. So a couple of steps that I take when I see that there's an issue that needs to be addressed. Actually, I'll start with the first mistakes that I've made. And one was to not address it soon enough, hoping things would get better, hoping things that, with some gentle, subtle nudges, I would push them back onto the right track. And that didn't work. And I talked to other managers that were relatively new, and we'd all made that mistake where we just kind of hoped the problem would go away. So I would say the number one thing is, and this person who's asking the question, like if you're already thinking about doing this, that's great. The first step is to really make the decision that something needs to happen and we need to address it. I would also look for feedback from other managers that maybe have interacted with this person in the past. See if there's maybe something that, not that it's your fault, but there's something that you're missing, or there's something that's specific to your dynamic with this person that might be kind of negatively impacting their performance or your performance. And if it's something that you're just not aware of, maybe some of their struggles. And then I would also give an opportunity to that individual to express their frustrations in a very safe place. So sometimes I've been in situations where I saw a mistake or a performance issue in a very specific project. And so, I kind of hopped on a call with that person. I said, like, tell me about how this project is going. Like, tell me about some of the challenges. And it was just an opportunity for them to say their side of the story, their frustrations, where they were seeing obstacles that they weren't able to overcome. And some of those were just very practical things that I could help with. So it wasn't always necessarily about the individual person's personality or work style. It was more about the situation. So I just want to say, always give an opportunity to the person to just vent and express their frustrations in their role, because some of them, you may not be aware of and may be impacting your perception of how they're performing. But then the last one is down to having the difficult conversation and saying, let's talk about what your career goals are. How can I help you reach your full potential and your career goals and where you want to be in the organization? And I think in my experience, it can go one of two ways. Either the person takes it poorly and they just don't have the growth mindset that to want to learn and change. And in that case, there's not much you can do. But most of the time, like 85% of the time, they'll be happy that you're giving them an opportunity to really address their weaks and their weaknesses and strengths and to grow from there. Yeah. It's not an easy thing.
It's not. Thank you so
Yeah.
much. And then we have another one that says, thank you so much for your amazing talk. I have a question. I have a question. As a woman, did you encounter any obstacles in your journey?
I think I've been extremely privileged that I haven't been faced with, real obstacles in my career journey in tech. I think that there's been certainly some situations where I, microaggressions, experienced situations where I saw people doing things not just to me, but to other people that were inappropriate or unprofessional. But whether I think that that being a woman in tech has had real challenges, I would say that that hasn't been my experience. So I've been extremely lucky, but I would say that a lot of that is due to the fact that well, a couple of things, and I may be speculating a little bit, but I think working remotely has been amazing for that. I think that there's a lot of things that just don't happen in or have less of a chance of happening in remote settings because when you type something online and you publish it to like a Slack or whatever online systems you're using, it's there forever. So I feel like people are a little bit more careful about how they interact with their colleagues and maintaining a really good work culture and environment. So I would say working remotely has just given a little bit more opportunity for equity and for diversity. And I think it just leads us to better inclusion as well. So I would say that I've been lucky that working remotely has really helped with that. And the other thing is I have to give a shout out to all of my bosses who have been women and who've gone the extra step of mentoring me and asking me to think bigger. And I think that's one of the things that I carry with me all the time is how can I be that person to others? How can I make sure I'm lifting up the people who report to me, who have career ambitions and who want to move into management? How can I give them the opportunities to stretch themselves and to try things and fail and to give them the tools to succeed? So I would say that that network of mentors has been so key in my career.
Oh, well, you're lucky. But
Yeah.
that's great. And this question is just from me, and it's like you said, get to know your organization very well, and you talk about like company, like to understand the company's operations and all this stuff. Like, and I have a hard time like understanding the company's operations and vision. Like, do you have any tips on this, like on how to navigate this issue?
Yeah. Not all organizations are well equipped for company communication. So I think that is definitely unique to each company. And so finding those sources of information is kind of the first step. You're like, all right, who seems to hold all the cards here? Who is the first to know when there's, a change in our product timeline or in our, how we're setting up policies, whether that's HR operations or customer support, anything, depending on what kind of organization you work in, you kind of have to figure out who is the hub of information. If that person is in charge of documentation, you are very lucky. And that means that there's going to be some documentation for you to access and read. And hopefully that person is also maintaining that documentation. So I would say first identify where those hubs of communication are. And if they are hidden, or if for some reason they're kind of like, they're not sensitive, but they're just not out there, ask the people who own those portions of documentation, like, hey, can I read the reports from last month? Or hey, can I get a rundown of like what your team priorities are this month? And I think it can seem like you're annoying people, but you have to get over that, because ultimately what you're trying to do is just be better informed to better support your teams and to be an advocate for your work and for what you're trying to achieve. So yeah, I would say identifying, knocking on those doors and asking for information and asking to be looped into whether it's email threads or given permission to access certain Google Drives. You kind of have to ask for permission, then and then just make a habit every day to read the reports, read the updates, read the Slack channels. It can take time, but that's just the nature of being an informed participant in an organization.
Yeah. Thank you so much. And wait, I think we have another one. How do you find your strength to vent to your colleague or to upper management?
Yeah. So I try to take a beat when I feel frustrations and just to think about it a little bit more objectively as you can. So I don't go straight to venting. So, and it sounds like in this question, you've also kind of internalized a lot of it. And, you haven't gone straight to venting either, because not everything is solvable, right? So you kind of have to determine, all right, am I venting for the sake of venting, or am I venting because I'm trying to workshop a solution? So you kind of have to identify, like, all right, what kind of venting am I doing? Am I trying to bring the like my manager's attention to an issue that really keeps happening again and again, or am I just do I just want to, like, talk about something to someone? And I think so one, I think naturally we all gravitate towards some colleagues that just are very similar to us, and so those people can be your, vent just to vent kind of resource. But make sure that it is not, I had a word for this. I remember telling an old roommate, when someone is non-consensual venting, when you go to someone and they're like not prepared to hear you dish, but then all of a sudden they're trapped because they want to be polite. So make sure that you have a consenting venting partner. But then the other thing is, yeah, if you're working through your emotions and you're working through sort of what you want to say and how you want to formulate it and what change you want to see, take some time to write it out. I think that's a great exercise, or to speak it out if you're more of a, you prefer just saying things out loud. Because an exercise that I did when I was doing a program called the Alt MBA last summer, and one exercise they had us do was think of an argument that you've had recently, or a difference of opinions, and now write the other person's opinion as if you were them, with all the empathy that you can muster. Like, argue the other side of your point of view with authenticity, and like you truly mean it. And it can be eye-opening to do that exercise, so that you're really like, I thought I was listening to that person before, but I really wasn't listening to them with, like, I really wasn't trying to hear them. And so I think taking a second to write down what you're trying to vent about, and your emotions, so that you can really see both sides, will help you then have the courage to come bring it to someone's attention, to say, I weighed the pros and cons, or I looked at the situation and the frustrations are here. I understand these other sides of it, but now I feel like I have enough data, insight, time, arguments to bring this to your attention. And I'm not just venting because I'm frustrated, but I actually want to help find a solution. And I actually think that's such a great leadership skill. Even if you're not in leadership, if you do that for someone, if someone did that who reported to me, I'd be like, oh, that's someone that sees the bigger picture, and they want everyone to succeed. They want the organization to succeed. It's not just about them having an easier time doing their job.
Yeah, well, thank you for that. Yeah, that's a great tool. Exactly, and not only for leadership. I think if we can put ourselves in the other person's perspective, like it will help. That's great. Okay, wait, we have another question. How do you get that consent venting with colleagues? Sometimes we think that we have gravitated towards them because we are similar, and then we realize we are not.
It's case by case. I can't, there isn't one way. I would just say very, very honestly, hey, I had a really like sucky experience. Like, can I talk to you about it? And if they say like I'm busy or no, or if you sense in their body language that they're kind of saying yes, but they don't mean it, it really, you kind of have to read them. So yeah, just take an opportunity to ask and say, I need to vent. Can I vent to you? And see what they say.
Yes, for consent first. That's great. Cool. I don't know if there's any other questions. I don't see more. So thank you.